you'd like me to focus on during the homily. And I didn't know this until this point. Obviously, there were about 5 women around you all listening to our conversation, right? And I heard these 5 female voices just blurt out these characteristics of John that needed to be brought out. He was positive. He was kind-hearted. He was understanding. He was generous. He was empathetic. He was forgiving. And most important, he was patient. And I thought, John's a wonderful gardener. He loves the beauty of each plant. And he's patient in finding out which ones will bloom. Of course, John wasn't gardening leopard plants, was he? His flowers were us. And anyone he might meet in the store, on the street, in the grocery, in church. We were his flowers. And he loved to take care of us patiently. I also thought of that gospel. We didn't use it today, but I'll bet you know it. Do you remember the good farmer who goes out and sows wheat in a field? And then in the middle of the night, he has some enemy, God knows what he is, probably a competitor farmer or something, and he throws a bunch of weed seeds all through it. And so nobody really understands this has happened until both the weeds and the wheat begin to come up later in the spring. And his servants come to him and say, Master, would you like us to go out and pull out all those weeds? And the good farmer, who's positive, kind-hearted, understanding, generous, forgiving, and patient, says, no, let them grow. Let them grow together. And we'll see what happens. Now, I think when most of us remember that story of the good farmer, we think it's about the seed and us. And we're wondering, am I a weed? Or am I a piece of wheat? But it can also be a story that's about the farmer and the characteristics of the farmer. And of course, in the parable, the farmer represents God. And Jesus is trying to convey to us the patience and the love and the nurturing that's part of his tending of his field. And if I could do the parable a little differently, I'm not quite sure how I could do this, but I really believe that good farmer, who is God, is saying, wait, don't pull out the weeds, because he's hoping all the weeds will become wheat. And he's patient. John would be like that good farmer, waiting and hoping we would all turn out to be grain. I have one last reflection that kind of fits this together. I think you all know Capuchins are Franciscans, and so we like to talk a lot about St. Francis, who's up there at the altar. But there's another big saint from Assisi, Clare, who did with women of like mind what Francis did with men of like mind. And Clare of Assisi is famous for encouraging her sisters to look at Christ until you can see Christ in yourself. And then Clare goes on to tell her sisters, once you can see Christ in yourself, then others can look at you and see Christ until they see Christ in themselves. And this pattern just kind of keeps going on and on, as long as people in the chain want to keep seeing Christ. It can go on indefinitely. I believe we can see similar things in John. Certainly, he looked at Christ, the good farmer, a lot. And I know he also looked at Blessed Solanus, through whom he could see Christ. So John was looking at Christ himself. John was looking at Christ in Solanus. And we can now see Christ in John. He's a good farmer, a good gardener, positive, forgiving, kind-hearted, understanding, generous, and maybe most importantly, patient for us all to change. Well, none of us is perfect, and neither was John, but we can look at him. You've looked at him. That group of people around you, Connie, already identified these characteristics that were so godlike, so Christ-like, and Christ-given, God-given to him, so that we might look at him, and together with him, we can follow Christ. May John rest in peace.